Welcome back to another episode of the Block Runner Podcast. I'm your host, William, always here with your co-host, Iman.
What's going on, dude?
On the sticks, we got TJ.
Hello.
All right, we were just talking about K-pop demon hunters.
Hunters, dude. The K-pop demon hunters, dude. Remy.
Yeah.
Sorry, is her name Remy?
Yeah.
Remy. I forget the
And
other
the
two.
gang.
Yeah, Remy and friends.
Yeah,
And
that was
the
like
Soju Boys or something like that.
that was trending on Netflix for like months straight.
It probably still is. I'm almost certain of it. I think it won like an Oscar or an Emmy or something like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's a pretty good movie. I mean, the graphics are good, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
I mean, but this is culture, dude. This is part of the task of reality. You've got to understand culture because it's always in flux. It changes.
yeah,
And like that's important, especially if you're trying to like exist in the world of AI, where like AI also changes so quickly. And like if you're trying to find some sort of market fit, it's like, oh, I'm gonna learn a bunch of AI stuff, like how to vibe create. It's like, well, then you better be vibe creating the right thing that's tapping into the
That's
right
right.
cultural nexus and nerves. Otherwise, you're just kind of burning credits. 'Cause,
well,
like,
even if you're building the right thing, you still have to market it correctly.
well, yeah, that's part. Yeah, that too. It's like you gotta speak. You gotta communicate in a way that's aligned to whatever the culture of the now is. Right now, the best reflection of that are these like AI fruit videos that are going viral
Yeah.
everywhere. Somehow, that's somebody discovered that people really want to see fruit drama.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah, and then I looked a little bit deeper into it. It's like because it started off as like just the same fruits.
Yeah,
But then it like expanded the universe.
yeah.
There's like every fruit you could think of, has now been
It's all like sexually based
Yes.
drama, right?
pretty much where it's like, oh no, the eggplant is here, dude. It's here to steal our
It's
wives.
like a wreck town.
Yeah, literally. It's like the pineapple girl. Like as soon as she leaves Eggplant's house, she's like limping. It's like, damn.
I wonder
dude.
what happened there.
I don't know, man. But yeah, it's very odd, the content there. But you read the comments and it's like anything with related to AI, right? It seems like split down the middle. Half people love it
Yeah,
and the other half absolutely hate it. They think this is going to ruin society.
yeah. It feels low effort. I mean, just drama is interesting for humanity for some reasons, like a psychological thing. But then,
Just like ubiquitous, I guess.
yeah,
We all,
everyone understands.
yeah, exactly. We've all dealt with
yeah,
relationship traumas and ordeals, right? So
for sure.
somebody who effectively packages that into like a consumable, it's gonna do well in most cases.
Yeah, for some reason, it appeals to the psychology of humanity, and so when you combine that with AI generation,
Yeah,
you have like infinite drama. Then,
yeah, and that's what's kind of cool because I did my investigations just to see how's this propagating because it reminded me of like PFPs, like NFTs.
yeah,
It's like there were only like a few PFPs really popping off, and then like give it like a few weeks or a few months, and
yeah,
it seemed like there were just thousands of these collections pouring out daily, and there were
yeah, yeah.
because people were broadcasting like the formulation of this like new hot in demand product, which were profile picture collections, NFTs.
Yeah.
There were YouTubers out there telling people how to how to do this.
It was being compared to the iPhone.
Yeah. And it blew up, right? So I went on YouTube. I found a ton of people giving you tutorials
Yeah.
like, how to do this and like the most cheap way possible. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
And it's very simple. It's very easy flow. And it's literally like take a screenshot of like your favorite AI fruit video, run it into ChatGPT, get you like a JSON script,
yes.
and then like just make your little alterations. It's like, I don't want an apple.
Put a chain on. And
I want a kiwi. Yeah.
yeah,
And yeah, then you just alter the metadata essentially of these characters,
yeah.
put it into like Nana Banana or whatever, generate your image, and then use that to create your video shots. And that's
Yeah,
it.
and on one of those games, what's that? Tung?
Tung Sahur?
Yeah, that one.
The brain rot guy? Yeah.
Yeah, that got a lot of traction where Fortnite had a skin that
Oh.
was like the top selling skin for a while.
Yeah.
And it's just like a stick character.
It's just like a piece of wood, I think.
Yeah.
with arms and legs.
With a bat.
I think so. But he comes from a whole universe of other brain rots. And so I've been privy to this because I have an 8-year-old girl at my house.
Yeah.
So I see this regularly. But yeah, it's starting to, what's the word? Dominate, I guess.
Become culture.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what I mean by keeping tabs on what culture ends up being, right? It's like, it's this stuff. Like, AI is actually doing something to people's,
It's sort of like the same effect as like the 6-7 phenomena. It's just like everywhere all of a sudden.
All of a sudden. It seems like all of a sudden, but it takes time for these things to actually build up. You have to be in the trenches of Roblox and Fortnite and TikTok to actually discover these things and then watch them grow and mature into unavoidable truths of culture, basically.
Yeah.
That's what culture is, right?
Yeah, and it's ultimately important to understand this stuff because that's how you got to fit within what exists in the market, right? And so that's why I like NAT because it's so flexible in that direction where it could pretty much be anything, right? It's like NAT going to make it, so you have like this elite speak.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of appeal to those people who like memes, but then you got the serious side, people who really like fundamentals like I do. It's like NAT is probably the second most important cryptocurrency out there. And so, so being flexible according to what you find in the market is very important.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring up NAT in this discussion because it almost feels like if you want nothing to do with that world of like trying to stay on tap with like what is the cultural nerve of today, I would just buy NAT and chill.
Sure.
To be honest, just because like you're saying, NAT is like it's concrete, it's like so solid in its fundamental state, and it's like it doesn't matter what happens to culture. It's
it transcends.
It transcends culture.
It does. It's math.
Yeah, just like Bitcoin, right? That's why. But other things like our soon to be released product, NAT.fun. I think that's going to be solely dependent on culture, right? Because the things that are going to be created and emitted from that ecosystem, I'm predicting the ones that are going to strike the nerves of culture are going to do the best.
Yeah, I totally agree. And in addition, from the fundamental side of that is that it's solving a different kind of problem. And that's why we feel like it, on paper, we feel like it has a lot of legs. And so if it solves that problem, then you mix the culture aspect of it, which humans outside of us are way better at that. And so they're going to come up with things that are going to have a ton of traction that confuses us.
It does.
But they've tapped into something that exists out there that we don't understand.
Yeah.
And that's why we like building platforms rather than any one-off thing, right?
Yeah, I think it's cool. And then like that, I think gives us a little bit of like an understanding as far as direction, right? It's like, all right, we know we need to incorporate AI into this like process flow of utilizing DMT as a substrate and then producing something of value through our platform, NAT.fun, so that it, whenever it's tokenized and packaged and put out into the market space, like, there's actual substance there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, knowing how liquid the cultural wave is, whatever tools we produce need to be able to play along
in that
kind of arena. So I think we're onto something. I just as we like internally iterate around like, these tools that are not public yet, but they will be soon. I could see it. I could foresee like the usage of this in context of like what we're talking about, right? On TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, these are very established like channels for determining and gauging cultural value of things. But there isn't like a pre-discovery zone to this stuff. Like everything that's been conjured is like conjured in private. Yeah. It's the way I kind of see it. And then it's like, you don't know what you're working on is actually going to hit or not. That's what you put it out in public and then you just let the audience decide.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But in NAT.fun's case, I feel like it's a surface area where you're lifting up the skirt a bit and you're giving people public access to the process of iteration to this type of content that can inevitably become viral, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, you're building like a different layer of audience, right? It's like an actual market of supporters, backers, whatever, right? for this type of
Yeah.
cultural wave.
That feedback's really important. So it's like when you create a project, you tweet about it, and you get a bunch of retweets. That sort of gives you some sort of feedback on the value of what you're creating, but there's no money specifically associated with like retweets, right? And so if you do this on a platform like NAT.fun, then there's an actual chart. There's actual people voting with their dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an even bigger signal than just like traction on Twitter. Because we've seen it. We've seen several projects have hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter, and they all fold in years, right? In a few years.
Right.
So follower count doesn't mean anything. Retweets means nothing.
Right.
So it's all about, voting with the dollars. And I think that's ultimately why a lot of these projects fail, is because of that, right? People are not using the platforms or launching or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is that people have launched in the past that have shut down. And actually, let me pull up the other items.
Yeah, because there's a tweet I guess I put out in reaction to I guess somebody in the Ordinals community, B-Ways, shout out B-Ways, kind of realizing that it's been a year since the Taproot Wizards mint happened.
Yeah, so here's the tweet. So let me read out B-Ways here. So he took a snapshot of March 15th, like 2025. And it's been a year, right? So he's celebrating 1 year since $30 million was raised, since neither their team nor community has put a spotlight in this great year for them.
Yeah.
And so from 0.31 BTC auction to 0.03 BTC floor, now there's been a 90% pullback, straight line down. Immaculate, to be honest.
It's pretty impressive.
And then 1,000 quantum cats valued at 700,000 versus 11 million in pre-mint snapshot below. Straight line down, 95%. Down 97% on investment on AI XBT.
Yes, now he's just calling out Udi's like investment sense here. Like not so much targeting the collections that he launched, right? Now he's like, what did he spend all that money he took from the Ordinals ecosystem on? Well, those are down too.
Yeah.
So it's like, at least don't feel too bad. It's like he's also down.
Yeah.
With your money.
Yeah, so there's hatred towards runes, yet invested in ICP rune platform, which gets hacked all the time. Half the team from time of mint has left. Meanwhile, only 2 members from the mint still rock the PFP.
Jeez.
None of the people who were paid to rock PFP pre-mint still rock the PFP. No discussion on Bit 420. Yeah, I mean, Bit 420 to me was like the most obvious thing. There's nothing that you could rally in terms of like Bitcoin development that's going to get through without it being like actually viable.
That was the egregious part, is like while he was launching this collection and rallying sentiment around it, is like, he was conveying that,
it's in the bag.
Because of this is kind of justifies the price point of this collection, because like the mission is so grand that we're collectively trying to pull together funds to essentially push together a BIP like that actually gets like some serious consideration. For one, if that's even the process for getting like BIPs like recognized, that for one, that's already flawed.
Yeah.
Like if Udi knows that's how it works, and there's already like speculation that is how it works. Like
Core sort of supporting, what's that platform?
Citria, I think. Citriny or something.
Citriny or whatever.
Some L2 or something. Yeah, like that was the reasoning behind what was it?
The support of, I forget which BIP it was, but it's
whatever the one that got everybody's, panties in a bunch.
Yeah.
It's like, they're only doing this because, they got paid by this L2 that raised tons of funds. Yeah, that's right.
Changing the op return.
Yeah, so maybe that's true. I don't know. It's like this is unusual, like activities.
And one of the members from Core did allude to that they were sort of supporting a project or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is, man, what a red flag. And that's why a lot of people are calling Core like corrupt.
I mean, I would say that's just
if that's true, then yeah, for sure it's corrupt.
Yeah, it's like it's not like a matter of technical implementations for the best, I don't know, harboring of the best case outcome for Bitcoin. It's just like who's got the fattest bid.
Yeah.
That's a problem. That's a big
Yeah,
problem. If,
yeah.
if Bitcoin is subjected to that, if that's a real, that's how the core group of devs operate, then I don't know. It's not just the economic issue for Bitcoin that
Yeah.
makes it like a teetering house of cards. It could be that too.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you listen to that recent All In podcast, I think Chamath kind of called that out.
Yep.
It's like, boys, the quantum thing is real. You know, here in Silicon Valley, we're broadcasting to you crypto bros that your existence is in jeopardy.
Yeah.
So take that serious and figure out a way how to organize and do something about it.
Yeah, I remember last week we were talking about this very thing, and I was wondering why Google decided to focus on the cryptocurrency industry rather than the entire world to send this red flag.
Yeah.
And I think Chamath was the one who basically said it right. It's cryptocurrency is like a honeypot.
Yeah.
It is the easiest thing to compromise that will give the biggest flash.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he's right. If someone develops a quantum computer, whether it's like, you know, overseas or Google or Microsoft, it seems reasonable to think that cryptocurrency is going to be the first target.
Yeah, I think so. So
however small it is, right? However small you think crypto is.
It's in the damn name, dude. It's called crypto.
Yeah.
If you're trying to prove like a cryptographic break,
Yeah, that's true.
you do it to crypto.
Yeah.
You can no longer call these assets crypto anymore.
Yeah.
It's broco. You know, the broco industry, dude. That would be a tough day. So yeah, it's like they're screaming at us basically. And if these same core devs that like their means of operation is only like who's the biggest bidder, if that's how things are truly going down, then
Yeah.
we're probably in big problem. Unless Michael Saylor comes in with a fat, like, here's $50 million, here's what my devs cooked up.
Yeah.
Do it, son.
Yeah.
And that may be the case. That may be how it goes down.
The thing is that money is a factor here for sure, because developers need to pay the bills too, and they can't just develop Bitcoin without getting paid.
I mean, in Vibe Code days, in Mythos days, dude. I mean, Mythos is
that changes things for sure.
It's like how much is the bill actually? Are you talking about Claude?
Well, no, I'm talking about like putting food on the table.
Yeah.
Like
I know.
spending your time on it.
I totally agree, but in reality, it's probably like some Joel Osteen type shit, right? Like they're out there with mansions. These guys,
the core devs, you think? I mean, like the
If
developers?
if this is how things are going down, it's like
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. If that's how it goes down.
Yeah.
But even people in mansions need to put food on the table, right?
Oh, yeah, it's expensive caviar, dude. You know,
The
Those
yacht's
butlers aren't
expensive.
going to pay themselves.
That's
dude.
right.
that's true. Yeah, so I get it.
You
Yeah,
gotta fuel the yacht, guys.
yeah. So it depends on your bills, for sure. So, but I don't know. Yeah. So is any of this a problem? Hard to say, because money kind of dictates
I think
everything in reality. So
Yeah.
is it really a shocker that Bitcoin,
I don't think so.
somehow escaped that?
Yeah, I think that is my point. Is like I don't think in any scenario you could develop for Bitcoin where it isn't sort of biased.
Yeah. Or like, captured by like capital incentives, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
Yeah, if there's any human involved in anything, like
that's right.
it's subjected to that outcome. So
Which that adds why like Bitcoin has such a mysterious origin story with nobody knowing who Satoshi is, because if Satoshi's human, you'd think he'd move his $70 billion that he has in the wallet, but he hasn't,
yeah,
and that is unlike a human would do.
evidence of alien.
Yeah, that would be in support of such.
I would agree. Yeah, like
Or he's
death.
dead.
Yeah, frozen.
Yeah.
Like Al.
And even then, even if he's dead, his Bitcoin will enter into circulation because of quantum.
Yeah,
And I don't think it's a good idea that we start freezing people's funds just because quantum is coming, and then we just kind of fork around it. Like, I think that's a bad idea. It's a slippery slope.
yeah,
I think it's totally okay that, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, there's 21 million in circulation, roughly.
So you're advocating for the still approach, right?
Yes.
Still and do whatever.
Yeah. It's going to dump the market for sure, but
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it's Google. Hopefully you steal it and then you put it in the ledger and just lock it up in some museum.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool. It's like, this is proof that
Yeah, I mean,
quantum, the inflection point, right? It's
yeah,
all
what
this
is
locked up
Google
Bitcoin.
going to do with 1 million Bitcoin? Let's say it's worth $1 trillion. Like, what are they going to do with it? They're going to just, they already have trillions, dude.
Dump it.
Yeah, dump it for $1 trillion. I mean,
maybe it's like we want to build rockets too. We want a moon slingshot. You know, everyone's racing to go to the moon apparently, so that shit ain't cheap. And so Google might feel a little left out. And thanks, Bitcoiners, for your your noteworthy contributions for us to be.
Well,
in
if
that
that's the
race.
case, then that's a good use of $1 trillion.
True. That's
right?
actually, I wouldn't be too mad at that. Actually,
Yeah.
The only thing cooler than $1 trillion is $2 trillion.
it's true. We're quickly starting to get to that. Like the trillions are expanding. I mean, we got several companies
Yeah.
IPOing at $1 trillion valuation soon.
Yep.
Which-
Several.
Yeah, which 5 years ago that would be like an insane statement.
Yeah.
But it's like undervalued. Clearly.
Yeah.
Right?
So Tesla, or no, sorry, SpaceX is going at 1.7 in their IPO, 1.7
God.
trillion, and it's still undervalued.
It's an easy 10x, boys.
That's
Lock
right.
it in. 17 trillion. This is going to be nothing. Cakewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be a 10x
I mean,
over probably 20 years.
It's
but yeah.
literally like a white paper at this point. The SpaceX plan is like they put out like
Sure.
a fancy animated video. It's like, here's what it's going to look like. But because it's Elon,
That's true.
only because of that, you
10x
give
is
it-
in the bag.
Yeah, you give it some actual viability, but it's literally the same thing as like launching an ICO. It's just,
It is. It is.
It's a vision. It's a dream on paper
yeah.
and a huge like request for funds.
Which then
Massive one.
Chamath comments on this too, is that you could only do a few of them at the same time, maybe one or two. The third and fourth one are not going to have enough money in the market to absorb hundreds of billions of dollars in their IPO.
That's interesting.
So yeah,
It depends. Like if the first few of them actually work and like they do like a rapid 10x.
yeah, I think, but there's like a limit, there is.
But yeah, I'm just saying that if the first ones succeed, it's like the speculation around it is just tremendous.
Yeah,
Then that's like new capital that can trickle to like all these other vapor
true.
IPOs, or I don't know. Who knows? Like, is this going to be AI's actual bubble moment, or is this the top? I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's just, it's hard. This is,
I
right
know.
now we have like very basic AI. They're very good.
I mean,
Very good, but are you going to believe that AI is going to get worse over time?
no.
No way.
Only way that happens is if like World War III actually like
Yeah.
goes down and like all these data centers become like targets.
Yeah, World War III is really going to be, it's like Claude versus Claude.
I don't know about
Or
that.
maybe
dude.
Claude
That's
versus like an open source.
I think that's World War IV that you're talking
Yeah.
about.
No way, dude. There's
World
not,
War
there,
III
there-
is still.
there's not
like,
going to be a World War IV.
There has to be.
No, there's not.
It's going to
Absolutely
be
not.
like the robots.
No, when you have abundance, like world scale abundance, what's the point of a war?
Well, it's like that LLM over there thinks we should do it this way, and I disagree.
Yeah, but there is an accurate, true way to do things.
According to you,
No.
I think.
According to science and physics and
Yeah.
resources
Yeah,
and
but
cost.
that model over there, Mythos 2, is going to create like a new science, a new physics, probably a new understanding of
good.
physics.
Absolutely, that's good.
Yeah, and then they're gonna like build around that like a civilization. And
Yes.
then there's gonna be others that.
Send me there, dude.
See, you're already part of this new war. That's World War IV, dude.
Yeah, dude, there's definitely going to be people that worship the old gods.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
losers.
What do you mean?
See, that's the hatred in you. Will's
You already
ready.
you're ready for battle, dude. You're ready for conquest. It's like we cannot have those people consuming our credits.
Gotta get rid of them.
They must be dealt with immediately. Right? That part of our brain is definitely never going to go away, right?
No, it's not. But that's why we have basketball and football, and we have games. We can get that out safely.
I mean, I wish I lived in your optimistic mind, dude. I really do. I just don't see it.
No way we ever see World War IV.
Okay.
That's my bet. Ever.
all right.
World War III is the last one.
That would be tremendous.
I think there's a book called World War III is the Last War, something like that.
Of course. I'm sure somebody wrote the same book in 1940s.
Negative.
For World War II. This is the last time we're doing this, humanity.
No way, dude.
This is the war to end all wars. That's literally what they titled World War II. It's like the war to end all wars. They were a little wrong about that one back then, too, dude.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, man. So what was the point of all this? I forgot. Somehow we were talking about ordinals.
Yeah, I forgot.
World War.
Well, I guess we were talking about Taproot Wizards.
Yeah, but why? It's like an indication of, I think.
Oh, yeah, Bitcoin updates.
Yeah, but even more rewindo, like the NFT, NAT.fun related in a sense that, the happening here is like a direct, representation of I guess like our thesis, right? The thesis behind Nat is pretty well understood.
Mm-hmm.
The problem solution thesis.
Yeah.
The problem solution of Nat.fun maybe a little bit more ambiguous.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has the problem right under their thumb on like trying to identify what happened to NFTs.
No, I mean, if you spend any time on crypto Twitter, it's like every day everybody's putting out that they're vocalizing that, like, what the fuck happened to NFTs?
Yeah.
It's like, what went wrong? Is there
nobody
anything
knows.
Is there anything we can do or should do to like try this again or something, right?
Yeah.
And nothing, right? To the point where NFTpulse.org.
Yeah.
You go there and it's like a blog post of like, yeah, we've archived all previous data, but we're out. We're done.
Yep.
And when I saw that, that's like, holy shit, dude. That was like...
Nothing is tracking NFTs now.
Basically nothing. Nobody has any desire or any incentive to track anything.
That's insane.
It's actually the bottom. Like,
yeah.
Because you can't get any worse, I don't think.
Yeah, nobody tracking an asset like anymore.
Yeah, it's not even like a theoretical bottom at this point. It's like, it's a bottom.
Yeah.
It can't go any worse. It can't get worse than this.
Yeah. So ape in, right?
Yeah, well, like, what do you do with that information? Like, what would your gut tell you?
Well, my gut is first principles thinking. It's like, why? What happened? Like, what was the issue?
Okay, so let's harp on that for a minute, right? Because I see tweets like this. This is partly the issue, right? It's the I don't know if you can identify this as like a culture problem or just like a is it more of like a fundamental problem?
How is anyone compelled to spend a third of a Bitcoin on an asset like this? What is compelling you? What do you think this is going to go up in value? Is that what?
Well, for sure. That's why I would do it.
But why?
Well, it's like, what is this? The guy offering me this, what is he telling me? Right? It's the same thing as who's going to buy into a $1.7 trillion IPO? Well, what is Elon telling me he's going to do with the money then?
Yeah, he's going to go to the moon and build robots and stuff.
Okay.
And mine the moon and asteroids.
Right. So what happens if he doesn't do any of those things? The way like, Udi and Taproot Wizards promised these BIPs and all these different changes to Bitcoin that are coming.
Fraud. He goes to jail.
Oh, shit. Well, that's why you bet on Elon, right? And not these guys, because Elon...
Yeah. I mean, an IPO process is well regulated.
Yeah. But even beyond that, just like from a market participant point of view, right? You bet on a guy that has like a track record of delivery, which Elon has.
Yeah.
20 companies or something that have actually proven people like, oh, it can't be done.
That's right.
Well, we figured it out, right? So
yeah.
Without that, that model of like, give me all your money up front so that we can execute on this plan doesn't really pan out, right?
Yeah, I think if Elon fails, I'd be totally okay with that because he's got a track record of successful discoveries, right? Landing rockets, Tesla, Boring Company, all these things that he's been successful at. I think it's okay to have a failure, right?
Right.
But we've had a systemic degree of this happening in the NFT space where everything is down almost 100%.
Right, which means there's a lack in. So the reason why
this market valuation.
Well, market belief and confidence in like the whole sector entirely, right? Because in traditional equity markets, it's like these same go-to-market mechanisms are basically in existence, but confidence, it wavers from time to time, but never to this degree where everything is down 99%.
Yeah.
Why? Because companies actually execute and deliver on their promises in most cases because they're revenue driven, right?
Yeah.
In this case, that's not what's happening, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
confidence is completely nuked. Therefore, there is no market, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can't deploy that same like go-to-market mechanism in NFTs. We need to completely refactor, redesign.
So what you're saying is there's essentially two problems. It is the confidence problem, and then it's the launch problem, right? If there's no confidence and you launch something for a third of a Bitcoin, you're not going to sell out. But if there is confidence, you are going to sell out, which he did.
Yeah.
But now there's like a systemic degree of lack of confidence, and they're not even celebrating their 1-year anniversary.
Right.
So we got to restore confidence back, and the way you do that is by a launch mechanism that starts at zero, essentially.
Yeah. That way, there's no discrepancy of like from like at the starting point. It's like there's a demand of your value or some assumption of like some executed value on my end, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not what's happening here. For one, that's one reason not to continue down that path. It's a little close to the Howey test for one.
Yeah.
So this mechanism where you're not starting with this like pre-assumption of execution of value delivery in order to return value for those of you who gave it me in exchange. It's like, that's not what's happening. We're all starting at like a valuation of zero,
that's
basically.
Right.
And then based on what the things that I do, the market is perceiving value in that in real time, signaling that through these buy and sell devices, right? AKA a bonding curve, right?
Yeah, so now let's continue this parallel. So we have Udi here. He's saying that we're going to get OpCat as part of Bitcoin, and we're going to have this programmability on Bitcoin and all this stuff through Bit 420. And so he sells these cats for $30 million. He completes his sell, and Bit 420 isn't spoken of since, essentially. And if you know the process of getting stuff through Bitcoin, it's not always just money, right? It is a factor, as we mentioned earlier. It's not always that. But it actually has to get into the code, right? It has to get merged, and miners have to support it and all this stuff. So it's a very complex process. So someone telling you that they're going to do this already just doesn't sound right off the bat. Right. Doesn't matter if you're raising $100 million. Like, this doesn't make sense that was even viable, right? But now, what if this was done through this new mechanism where really it just starts at zero, and like, I'm going to work on trying to get this through, and over time you start seeing some progress, right? Core devs start talking about it. It's like, okay, now you start gaining confidence,
right?
But if core devs aren't talking about it, it's not even viable. So you don't even get into the token.
Pretty much. Yeah, and the difference between these two scenarios where you have one camp that was delivered $30 million up front to go down that path of trying to actually execute on this vision versus one that has to like grind from zero essentially.
Yeah.
In order to, and they know it's like the way for me to actually receive my $30 million is I need the market.
Progress.
I need the market to believe in me, and I need confidence. And the only way to achieve that is through progress.
That's right.
Like actual execution. Like, which of those two outcomes is actually going to produce results?
It's
like
exactly what Elon did. He made progress. He sold PayPal. He started Tesla. Nobody believed that people would buy electric cars. They did.
Yeah.
And he started with a $200,000 car. And rich people bought it, made the Model S, Model 3, Model Y, Model X. And then he turned that into a $100 billion business, and now $1 trillion business.
Yeah.
And so he made progress. In SpaceX, he did the impossible. He landed rockets. Now he's saying he's going to build a space station on the moon.
Right.
You're going to think he's not going to do it?
Some people might, but yeah. I mean, I'm in the camp of I would never bet against him.
Yeah. So this is a man that has shown progress. He's asking a lot of money up front.
Yeah.
He's going to receive it. And let's hope he actually achieves it, because if he does, I mean, that's a huge step for humanity.
Yeah.
But that is a history of progress versus, you know,
Right.
a cat.
Quantum cats. Remember, quantum is hot right now, dude. So
That's true.
he was onto something, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. So, but in the context of a company like SpaceX or Tesla or whatever that demonstrated these tranches, or I guess it's not even the company, it's the man himself, Elon Musk. He has a personal journey, and the market kind of like formulates its perception of value of this man through the mechanics of, like, you know, equity ownership in his companies, whatever they end up becoming, right?
Yeah.
So not everybody, especially in crypto, will have like access to those same market rails. So over here in Web3 land, we have to devise our own market native rails for these types of creative endeavors, right? Whatever it is, you know, if it's spinning up a YouTube channel that you think you can create like the next viral content for and build an IP and brand, totally original around that. How do I, outside of the rails of YouTube monetizing that, how do I capture the value of that through Web3 rails and onboard a community to back me, and not do it this way, right? Where it's like, you know, hey, I'm going to build this YouTube channel. Here's the characters. Here's the IP, the vision of it all. Give me $10 million, and I promise you, I'm going to build like the hottest next AI fruit video channel on YouTube, TikTok, whatever.
Yeah, I think this is a combination of timing and everything, because there's this platform called Kickstarter where it's essentially that. It's like, here's this thing, I prototyped it. I need, you know, $3 million to actually manufacture it and get you one of these things.
Yeah, what's the like?
And a lot of them fail.
Okay, I was gonna
many fail.
I'm not surprised. It'd probably be, again, I think there's
those that do not fail have already an established business. They come up with an idea, and they put it, instead of selling it on their website, they just say, I'm just going to put it on Kickstarter to see if people actually want it. And
so it's kind of like Shark Tank, right?
Yeah.
They want exposure.
Yeah, and it's like a pre-sale, but it's a pre-sale from a company who's delivered stuff already before.
Correct.
Those are the ones who are successful.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, if so, because there's some successful ones, that's why the non-successful ones still have a platform to attempt to achieve what the successful ones have done. And that's why that market probably perpetually, I don't know, like, are they getting fleeced over there? Like, you're not really.
They do, yeah.
So you never get your product, basically, that you were hoping for.
Yeah. And
it's different kind of like.
Not only that, you do get a product, but it's like not the one they advertised.
Wow. I would like to see like a montage of those examples, just because.
It's interesting that doesn't enter like, you know, montage YouTube of like failed Kickstarter projects. Like, we just never see that.
The way meme coins do?
Yeah.
It's like I've seen tons of those.
Yeah.
Those GIFs, it's like, oh yeah, meme coins. It's the
just straight down technology.
Yeah. There's plenty of grave dancing happening on that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So assuming that there's something wrong with this, like, you know, because clearly there is. This is what we call the legacy model.
Yeah.
Right, where it's like, here's this thing I want to produce, and I set a price to it, so you can come and buy it, and now you have ownership in this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've completely re-engineered that whole process, right? Where there is no preset price to the value of whatever thing that's being produced on NAT.fun.
Yeah, pretty much everything has a set price, which is on the bonding curve.
Right, but that's not being set by the creator.
Correct, it's not.
It's being discovered by the participants, right?
Yeah, and the difference is if you're a very popular influencer and I am not, and we both launch projects and we both graduate, because you're popular, you would generate way more volume and therefore way more income for you to execute on your project than I would.
In some cases. In others, maybe it's just like an actual genuine breakthrough of something that didn't rely on influence. Right?
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't rely on influence. It's just something cool.
Right. Yeah, we see that all the time, right? So,
but But it still applies, right? This is like a attention economy. So if you command attention, you will command volume as a result. In the same way that happened here, right? This is like, I think, the biggest raise in ordinals, right?
It's either them or OMB.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Let's call it the same. They're tied.
Yeah,
right? It's those two. I don't know how much the Node Monkeys raised. I don't think it was that much. Maybe like 10 million, 15.
Yeah. What happens to those funds? Just yacht fuel, dude.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, the justification for this is they did nothing wrong. They just sold art, right?
Yeah, no, they didn't do anything wrong. It's just but they also sold Bit 420, for example.
Yeah.
Which wasn't going to happen at any point.
Right. Okay. So then if that's the notch of wrong, then we're saying it's okay to continue down this path of this legacy go-to-market model, but just don't overpromise. Like, things will return.
For sure. I think there is a place to do this. I think it's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with doing this. It's just systemically, nobody wants this anymore.
Right. Yeah, I don't think so.
So there's going to be the people out there who do command and are worth a sale of images for money. I think is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just on average, it doesn't work anymore.
Right.
And so the creators out there who are focused on creating art, they don't have an opportunity.
Yeah.
And then now these days with Mythos in the midst of things, and Opus and Claude, or ChatGPT 4.4 Codex, all that stuff. You know, there's so many things, so many ways to create with very little opportunity for people to take advantage of that, and using legacy rails.
Yeah, if you and like a year or two ago, if you would have asked me if I think if I would have thought that like a market can be built around the outputs of these technologies, I probably would have said no. It's like there's no way people are gonna desire AI stuff, AI generated, digital products, whatever.
Yeah.
But today, I don't think that's the case anymore, at all.
Why is that? It's just because
I think
LLMs got better. The outputs are better.
It's gotten better, and there's enough demonstration out there, I guess, that even though people are well aware, like this is like an AI thing, they still identify like this is a valuable thing because it's entertaining me or whatever. I really like this thing, and it's achieved like cultural resonance, like we were talking about in the beginning.
Yeah.
And to a point where it's like out competing everything else. The freaking Tung Sahur, number one Fortnite skin. It's out competing Marvel. It's out competing Disney. It's out competing all the other IPs out there. Tung Sahur, dude. Who the fuck is that?
Yeah, let me look that up.
Bring them up so people know what is like the hottest cultural skin in the video game sector, right? This is what people want to be identified as.
I've never typed these characters in that series before.
Really?
But Google finished my sentence.
Oh, he knows.
I just put tongue and then it finished the sentence. So this is it. Tung
Sahur, dude. I mean, who wouldn't want to be this guy as they're running around murking?
This is a good example of what you were talking about, right?
That's ballerina cappuccino or cappuccino.
I've never heard of these things before in my life.
Dude, you guys are...
You're not with it, dude.
Yeah, you're no longer hip. Confirmed.
Jeez.
This is it. This is the top echelon of cultural resonance right now. This is what I'm seeing. Right?
The thing is that kids are exposed to this stuff, but the nature of their interaction is sexual, right?
I don't think not necessarily these characters, but like these are like I think the OGs. But there's a whole, like I said, the fruit world is like an independent entity, or independent IP, you could say, of the same realm of all of this. I would categorize as what I'm saying is like this is the proofing that humanity has accepted AI as like a product category, and it's like not to be besmirched, right? It's like, oh, you can't build a market that's like AI derived.
Yeah,
like 2 years ago, I would have had that firm belief.
Yeah, there's no way people would
pay anything
to
either watch something that's produced like this. Like they could make a full movie and like make people pay $10, $20 a ticket, and people will come watch this fucking thing. I know they will.
Yeah.
Or somebody could launch an NFT collection around this brand IP, like in this universe. People will want to own those things and collect them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, here it is. That's the skin.
That's more valuable than fucking John Wick.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Name someone else who's cool out there.
I think Master Chief is on there too, right?
Lame. Master Chief doesn't stand up to Tung Sahur, dude. We're gonna have to swap this guy out pretty soon.
That's incredible, dude.
Yeah, that's what's happening, dude. So yeah, like you're saying, Mythos is on the way. Everybody's claiming like this is actual AGI. In practice, but it's being
safely guarded by Anthropic.
Yeah, only released to like the top companies in the world.
Yeah, just to increase their security before the flood.
Right. So is this just a marketing thing?
No, definitely not.
It's like an actual.
No, I mean, I think Anthropic's like a $300 billion company. If you're a $300 billion company, you say these things. I would lean on the side of like trusting them.
Yeah. Plus, they've already demonstrated like genuine concern, right? Whenever the government approached them, and they actually they nuked their own contract with the government.
That's right.
Like, that wasn't marketing because they're losing money there.
That's right.
Right. So it's like whenever they portray a concern, I would assume it's like an authentic thing. So they're out there saying we can't release this next model
without you guys preparing for it.
But only you corporations, like all you small businesses out there, you're fucked.
Yeah.
And include maybe potentially crypto in that category too, because I don't see Aave on that list.
No.
I don't see any of these major exchanges on that list. Or any DeFi protocols, so all that may be in jeopardy once Mythos is released.
Damn, that's crazy.
If you think about it, like maybe it's not even quantum that's the danger. It's just this like these super intelligent AIs that can crack anything.
Yeah, I don't know if we have it here. So it's called Project Glasswing. They have a video, this one, where they say that I think on Linux or something, they discovered a bug that's been in there for 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a vulnerability that strung a bunch of vulnerabilities together.
Mm.
And they were able to access like keys and stuff. And so Mythos discovered that.
Yeah.
And so this is what we're talking about here. So let me read this. Claude Mythos is not a small upgrade. This is a generational leap. 77.8% on the Software Engineering Bench Pro. Claude Opus 4.6, for contrast, was 53.4%. So that's a 45% improvement on agentic coding, 82% on Terminal Bench 2.0, and Claude got a 65.4, so which is not even close. Anthropic just showed us why we're willing to rate limit paying customers, cut off OpenClaw, burn goodwill for weeks. They were saving capacity for this. Claude Mythos in Claude code is going to be a completely different product. So the model I've been building BridgeMine with is about to look like a toy. So we have the SWE Bench Pro, and then we have the Terminal Bench Pro 77 to 53, 82 to 65.
Yeah, when I saw that, because typically when I see these like model comparisons, they're like a 2 to 3% difference between them whenever they release new things. But this one's like a huge step forward against its own product that's already dominating the market.
It's sort of a little bit of cannibalizing, but I mean, this is going to be probably way more expensive than using Opus.
Yeah,
This is like a tactical nuke.
Right. This is why people are concerned, right? Where it's like, not only are corporations getting first access at this, therefore it's adding more leverage to their already control of society. But then it's like once this is whatever the actual finished product that's consumer grade, consumer accessible, if it's going to be so expensive, then it's like it creates that division.
Yeah, the class division,
the actual permanent underclass situation.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like a real thing.
It is. I think it is a real thing.
So, if you can't afford a $5,000 a month subscription or whatever it ends up being, $2,000, $3,000 in order to take full use of this, and then you're pretty much screwed.
I think that is correct.
Because assume the ones that they're going to be
so far leaps and bounds ahead.
Yeah, they're going to be building products and companies that will probably displace your need and involvement in the next iteration of our economy, right? So it's
Yeah.
This is a real thing. So like if you're already not like economically positioned for that, which most of us are not.
Yeah.
Right.
So basically sell your SaaS positions, all of them.
Your what?
SaaS positions, software as a service.
Like Salesforce and shit like that?
Yeah, everything.
I don't have any of those. That's not gonna help me, dude. What is the common man supposed to do in reaction to this? Like, if I don't have the funds to like even keep up,
Well, sell your SaaS positions and wait for Anthropic to go public and go in that.
just buy. Yeah, maybe. I don't know, man. Shit, that's another like close to $1 trillion IPO, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's like 800 billion or something.
Holy crap. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's not a bad bet. You might get a 10x in 5 to 10 years. Who knows?
Yeah.
Or maybe in this crazy world in like 8 months. Who knows?
It could be.
It'd be $8 trillion by the end of, if it's truly as powerful as it says. And like, imagine the headlines, like this company went under because of Mythos, or like this company and that whole industry is now automated.
I mean, we've seen that to a small extent. A lot of the companies started laying off. Now, it could be, they're just laying off because AI is a good scapegoat, but they've been laying off tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
And I think to a certain degree, it's because of AI.
Right. Yeah. Well, then I guess, so it's not only just like enterprise that's going to be affected here. Like we're saying, the best thing you can do, I guess, is to learn how to use these tools to create IP.
Yeah.
New products that are, again, now we've determined that
Like
they're
Tung.
Yeah, like this is an actual vertical now of like where you can secure yourself economic positioning within, right? Meaning, you don't necessarily need Mythos. You just need something maybe a few grades below that to produce this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. And as long as like you're able to tap in, and we're going to produce more content in the future that's going to help people, because we've been doing that and we've been producing some good content, right?
Yeah.
Some good AI generated stuff that I think can play in the same realm as this kind of stuff. And I think we want a lot of our users on NAT.fun to have the same access. So that's kind of navigating our internal development pretty significantly, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I think we want NAT.fun to be like a surface area for people they have this desire to be creative and to participate in this new vector we're talking about, right?
Yeah. If you're not using these tools, I think you've already been left behind. So if you're not, I think it's time to get on board and start figuring out ways to take advantage of this stuff. Just like the community has taken advantage of this, right? Someone came up with this thing. It happened to catch on fire, and then people came up with their own iterations and stories and all that stuff. And so it's a open source IP, right? And so it's all about, because these things are relatively cheap for what they do, you got to take advantage of this technology. I mean, if you're not, I don't know what you're doing.
Well, it's in a lot of cases, it's just it's still too technically complex. Even
it is for sure.
So it's just there's a barrier, of inertia for a lot of people. And again, that's.
But I think the biggest barrier is desire. If you want to learn about this stuff, you've really crossed a barrier, because a lot of people do not want to learn this stuff.
That's true. It's not even just barrier or desire, because I've seen people personally that they somehow discovered this opportunity and then they built in the desire, but they didn't get enough ROI, I guess.
Feedback,
positive
traction.
feedback. Yeah, meaning like, okay, I'm going to use these tools. I'm going to produce some content, put it out on the traditional channels of YouTube, TikTok, whatever. And so the feedback rails there is follower count.
Yeah.
And then, you do this for like a month or two. You spend the money on the credits and the time, because it takes some time and effort.
It does, yeah.
And by the end of 2 months, you might have 300, 400, 500 followers. It's like, fuck, dude, this might not be worth it, right? Because I'm not getting any money.
That's actually pretty good. And it took us a long time to get 500 followers or subscribers.
It did take us, but in TikTok, like that's
okay. TikTok's different, yeah.
Yeah, if you get like 300 followers on TikTok, it's like getting
0.
5 on YouTube or whatever.
It's probably worse than that, I think.
I don't know, like
the translations.
Ratios. Yeah. But nonetheless, that's what I mean. So it's a factor of not getting enough immediate ROI, right? So I think what the product we're putting together on NAT.fun solves that problem for a lot of people where, again, we're building a market around like the starting genesis of like AI producible IP.
Yeah.
For all the different product categories where it comes to like image generation, which can be utilized for NFT collections.
Yeah. Players.
So we're building that, and that will be part of the starting experience on day one. And it's part of the reason why it's taking us a little longer.
For sure. Yeah.
Because we were supposed to have put out a video by now, like how to actually use that interface and that tool, but we're refining it so that, again, it addresses this problem where we don't want it to be too complex, therefore it's off-putting, therefore people don't even want to put in the attempt, right?
Yeah, also, the thing to note here is that if you don't have a ton of followers on Twitter or subscribers on YouTube, it does not matter because we've seen things where Twitter has like hundreds and thousands of followers and they don't manifest into anything. And the same thing for TikTok. Like even people with millions of followers on TikTok, it doesn't mean they're generating a ton of money. That's not what happens. And so really the platform that we're creating with NAT.fun is even without that stuff, what you're testing is against real market money. Right.
Yeah.
That is like the biggest signal that you could possibly find. Right. And so don't feel discouraged if you don't have a ton of followers. That's not going to necessarily translate to, not having a successful project.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think it's actually, I would assume most people who, attempt to use these AI tools to produce some content that will launch through NAT.fun initially as a viability test, meaning like people are going to be speculating with a coin, the value of this attempt, this iteration attempt, whether it's an NFT collection, at some point in the future, it will be a video, right?
Yeah.
Like that is your market gauge to determine whether or not like this thing that I'm currently working on even has a shot, right? Like this is my cultural resonance, barometer, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? That's what the market serves. So if you achieve a block out, meaning you graduate, that's kind of like a confirmation you're up to something. You're on to something.
That's right. That's right.
Therefore, you should probably follow through that trajectory and execute, lock in that design, and then deliver it to the final destination, which is the channels that, the real market, the audience.
The consumption channels.
Yeah, those people will actually tell you, is this a hit or not, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a whole new, like we've injected a further down the point, I guess.
Upstream, like viability test.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Again, everybody has access to these tools, but not everybody knows what they should create with them.
Yeah.
Right? And nobody wants to spend, 12 hours a day and you're building the wrong stuff. And then you spend 2 months building these things and it nets you nothing. Yeah. Because nobody was there telling you.
Correct.
It's not good.
Yeah. So speaking of building stuff directly into the platform, one of the things that we've built is access to agents. And so if you already have an agent, all you got to do is plug that into NAT.fun and have your agent sort of experiment with different outputs. And our platform can support all kinds of outputs in terms of like what an AI can develop and put on the platform. So you're not limited to what is on the platform. You could just bring your own agent, come up with something completely unique that the platform doesn't natively provide you. And then all of a sudden you're outputting something specifically unique from you that anyone can't just come to the platform to try to replicate.
Yeah,
which I think is really cool.
Like a game or something like that, right?
Yeah, like a game. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you have this desire to see something Tamagotchi-like.
Oh yeah, dude. I need to see somebody come up with a Tamagotchi like game where each NFT is its own Tamagotchi, and like it's a shared experience. So each NFT is connected to a backend system that has ability for Tamagotchis to communicate with each other. But ultimately, you play the game, it grows, and you have to take care of it and all this stuff, and it's all from an NFT. Like you could do that with Opus and our platform and all that stuff.
That's true. Yeah, so all it's going to take is one bold and creative soul to kind of like iterate that. Yeah. Launch something on NAT.fun, hopefully people will take notice of it and see like, holy shit, this is brand new. This is cool. Token go up, block out, graduation occur, and you've got like a viral hit, at least on NAT.fun, right? Like you would assume there's a lot of trading activity for that collection, these assets. And then, okay, there's the blueprint, right? And then you would assume many more follow-up attempts
For sure.
will come after that. Why? Because that's just naturally how things proliferate. Right?
Yeah, not only that, developers and creators, they'll see that and be like, hey, I could have made that game better.
Right. Yeah.
You know, do their own spin off.
Yeah, that's what I mean by...
That's what this is, right? Someone came up with this.
Yeah.
One person, just one guy
Right.
came up with this, and it just hit.
Mm-hmm.
And because it hit, we have different permutations of the same thing coming from thousands of other people.
Yeah. There's a whole, again, like sector of the economy now where people, they got the memo. It's like, holy shit, whoever created this, they're selling these things on Amazon.
Fortnite is making money on something someone else created.
Right. It's true. But it's like, shit, I should do that.
Yeah.
Right?
I did this.
Yeah. And now we got fruits arguing with each other.
Yeah.
Cheating on each other.
That's right.
Whatever the fuck's going to come next, right?
Yeah.
It's going to get weirder from here, I'm sure. But yeah, so all we're doing is adding like another market layer to this activity, right? And what I expect is for people to resonate with that and see that as an opportunity, because it's not like this, it's a much more immediate like economic return for my investment.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to, not only do I have to hit the way Tung Sahur hit, I gotta like, you know, build a whole channel around that. I gotta build a bunch more things and then get the follower count where it needs to be, where then I can now monetize.
That's right.
And I've converted my AI credit spend into, you know,
some ROI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In our case, you do that same loop of activity, but basically right away you're getting market feedback and you're getting economic value in return for your actions, your efforts, right? So, yeah.
Oh, by the way, we have referrals on the platform too, which we've been testing, and you get 5% on all the sales.
Very cool. So yeah, it's just
pretty cool.
So tell your friends, basically, right?
Yeah. Yes, that and man, I'm forgetting one more thing from the platform's perspective.
There's a lot of things, so we're barely scratching the surface.
This is a very complex platform. We're finding out, right? As we're testing, it's like there's a lot of moving parts.
Yes, a lot.
And it's a lot under the surface than there is on the surface. Right, on the surface, it's like you launch, buy the fungible token, sell the fungible token, and then if it graduates, not only can you buy and sell the fungible token post-graduation, but you can also list and buy those NFTs.
Right.
Right. And so that's it on the high level. Oh, in addition, you have this vibe editor where you can create stuff. So that's 5 functions that occur on the platform. But underneath, man, it's like a giant iceberg of complexity.
Yeah, it is pretty fucking wild. So whenever you watch our launch video, it kind of represents that.
Oh, yeah, dude. I love it. It's so good.
It kind of, you have to really pause it at moments to really, because I've labeled this complexity at different, like, different points of the chain of activity that's happening underneath. It's a representation. And you'll probably, if you've watched anything on Netflix over the last 10 years, you'll recognize the what's it called?
The derivative?
I guess. The reference.
The reference, yeah.
Immediately. You should.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I'm really excited for people to see that video.
So okay, now that last minute estimates of launching.
Yeah, so if you watched our last podcast last week, we said we were launching this coming Monday. And so I'm going to say this exact same thing now.
God damn it, dude.
And so we don't necessarily want to launch on Monday just because there's so many prep things that need to occur. So it's probably going to launch on Tuesday. But if we're like ready, we're going on Monday.
All right. You heard it here, guys. So assume Monday or Tuesday next week.
Yeah, so follow our Twitter. Join the NAT channel on Telegram. There's like 2,600 of you in there. And that's where all the latest information is going to be. But other than that, if you guys have any questions on the NAT.fun platform, what's going on in the crypto space or the AI space, please let us know in the comment section below. Make sure you follow our Twitter accounts. Send us the DMs. Join the Discord as well. We're always in there. And that's it for us. I appreciate you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next podcast.
Peace.